Zone.
Welcome to Phantom Zoned, the podcast where we dredge the lakes of hell in search of the worst the cinematic world has to offer and put it on trial for its crimes against humanity. Should a film be found guilty, it will be jettisoned into the far, far reaches of space, a Phantom Zone, if you will. I'm your host, Adrian Torres, and joining me is my fantastic, great Secret Service buddy, Mr. Scott Daly. How's it going, Scott?
I'm doing good, Adrian. Would you say that I've earned the Canine Medal of Honor?
I don't know. I don't know if that's such a thing. But we can potentially say maybe. I'm like we'll see. You know, there might be other candidates.
That's true. I mean, there's a lot of really good Secret Service people out there.
There's 4 different dogs that played the lead character of this movie, so
it's kind of noticeable.
Yes. I don't know what made us do this one. It had been on my radar for a while that this movie wasn't necessarily any good, but there was a friend of ours on Twitter, Mr. Vice Victus, who had a very telling tweet where he tweeted out that his wife made him turn that shit off, basically. And the film that we're talking about is Max 2, White House Hero. It is a sequel. Just saying the whole thing. We'll get into why that title is pretty stupid. But then, second of all, it's just a shitty title in general. It's just... it is a sequel to the 2015 film called Max, which centers on a... they say that he's a Marine, but they don't really say like what division he's with or anything. But he is... is it a WDM or WMD, whatever? It's basically a service dog who, sniffs out bombs and a whole bunch of other stuff. And in the first movie, his owner is basically killed, and he's adopted by the family of the soldier, and it's just about their experiences that they have, which we'll bring up later because that is one fucking weird movie. Like, yeah. When I went in, I knew that basic bit that I just told you what the plot was, and then I'm watching it and I'm just going, excuse me, what is occurring on my television screen right now?
Yeah, and it's a movie I had never seen before, so I went into Max 2 blind, hoping that it wouldn't matter if I saw the first one or not. And I guess you're telling me that it does not matter.
But it does at the same time. Like,
how does that make sense?
It's connected very loosely to the first film, but like any of the mannerisms of the dog, or the way the dog is treated, or the basic background nature of this dog is completely different in this movie than it was in the previous movie.
Well, yeah, because I only watched the trailer for the first one, so I can't say for sure, but it feels like a completely different kind of movie. I mean, this is Dunstan checks in with a dog.
It almost seems too nice. You put it better earlier when you were comparing it to like First Kid.
Yeah, it's First Kid with the dog. It's every one of those terrible 90s, like the Richie Rich movie, First Kid. Like, yeah. It's just, it's terrible.
Yeah, I felt bad at the beginning of the movie because the first thing that pops up is you have the Orion symbol. And Orion used to be a great, distributor of movies. When you saw Orion, you were excited for what you were going to see because that either was going to be an over-top action film, weird science fiction movie. They were going to be fun. Now it's basically a subsidiary of a subsidiary that specializes in just putting out direct-to-video movies or certain festival films that they don't end up putting out in any theaters. So
yeah, it's sad. It is sad. Yes. Like I remember seeing that title logo all the time. And it's like, I was a bit excited when it came on here. It was like, oh shit, it's Orion. I heard that they were back and making movies again. But then I watched this.
Usually with Orion nowadays, they're a subsidiary of MGM, which, depending upon the outing, is a subsidiary of either directly Warner Brothers or New Line Cinema, depending upon like how the rights fall, depending upon what the movie is. So yeah, we're talking like fourth tier releasing here. So that's not where you want to be. You also don't want to be at the start of this film where they have two guys who are on a bench passing a file between each other, talking like, it's top secret classified information. Like they're talking about somebody from the CIA or FBI, because one of the guys is mentioning that I feel bad that I have to call this person back into service. To give you, Scott, a refresher course, because you did not see the first movie, what they're referring to when it comes to call back into service is, in the first movie, Max is deemed unfit for duty, and that he is reacting to a whole bunch of stuff more aggressively than he should be, and that they are going to execute him.
Jesus Christ.
That happens in the first 10 minutes of the movie. Now, legally, they had to mention that he was being more aggressive and was flying off the handle and wasn't reacting to certain things, because there was a law that was passed in 2000 stating that you could not euthanize or abandon a service dog once it was done with its duty. That the first option that you had is that you would either allow the person who worked directly with them when they were in service to adopt them. So their handler was basically able to adopt them. The next one was the handler's family, like direct family, would be able to adopt them. Otherwise, it went to like a special organization and then a state organization. So like there's a long waiting list to be able to do that. So that way they're taking every step so that they're not euthanizing any of them. And they would only do so if it was one of those that they were completely unfit, but they'd usually try to find a way to work with the animals, see if there's a way that they were able to rehabilitate them, because dogs that are in this situation end up getting basically dog PTSD, just like humans do, because of the situations that they're in, the stress that they're under, and just they'll crack with what's happening. So that's basically what happens to Max in the first movie, is that he's suffering from PTSD, and that's why he's no longer part of the program, and that's why the family of his handler in the first movie end up adopting him. That's why they also have that really, really creepy line at the beginning of this movie where they mention that the Wincotts are a good American and soldier family, and they were only happy to lend him to the cause.
Well, yeah, you need your PTSD dog protecting the president, right?
Exactly. Not only that, but this family that allowed their PTSD dog that they to go off and do this, but that dog belonged to their dead son. In that first movie, the husband is kidnapped because the son's best friend turned out to be a gun runner in Afghanistan, and he gets discharged from the military, ends up coming and living back in town where he grew up near this family, and goes to work with the dead son's dad because he's got gun deals in town that he's going to be taking place in. And in my favorite moment, actually tells the dad that the dog is the one who killed his son in a firefight that didn't take place, because instead there was a bomb that went off, and Max got really scared, and then there was a firefight, and Max had nothing to do with it. It was more so this friend that was a dick, and the dad from the movie hearing this is just automatically like, well, this guy who says he was friends with my son said that this dog killed my son. So the only logical reaction that I can have is going up, saying hello to the dog that I have in the outside cage, and pulling a gun on it to kill it.
Adrian, I think we watched the wrong movie. Yes. Because that sounds way better than anything that happens in this.
But that's important for me to address, because of the fact that those people who've been through that trying time basically said, "Oh yeah, it's totally okay if this dog who we thought was going to tear our family apart and actually brought us closer together, we're totally okay to let him go for a weekends, because this other dog, the main dog that works at the White House, is off on maternity leave."
Which just shows that government dogs get more maternity leave than humans do.
Well, not only that, but they decided that this dog that hasn't worked in at least 2 years, film-wise time, and was suffering from PTSD, is the best bet for them to bring into the White House.
And I'm going to be a little... Max is pretty shitty at his job. Like, he's really good at being friends with the kid. He's pretty shitty at being a Secret Service dog.
100% totally different demeanor from the first film. And like, he's in this one, he's going up and he's letting everybody pet him, and he's giving everybody kisses. First of all, if you were an adult who's out there with children who's listening to this podcast, they're probably not going to watch this movie. Thank God to that. But please be decent and make sure that your child knows not to go up to an active duty service dog wherever they are, whether it be police are just walking around town, if they're at a mall, if they're at airport security. Do not have your child go up and just pet that dog. That's not a good idea.
No,
this movie will tell you otherwise.
In fact, they tell you over and over again, that's really bad for the dog.
Yes, exactly. In this movie, not so much.
No, the dog just rolls over and lets you scratch its belly, and even the president does it.
Yep. If you thought that situation with them just randomly choosing this dog was a bad idea, then just wait till you see our wonderful, glorious CGI for the front lawns.
Oh yeah, no, that's God. It's like, fortunately, most of this movie does not actually take place at the White House, even though it's called White House Hero. But yeah, every shot of the exterior of the White House has the worst CGI background I've ever seen. Like, it's so bad. Like when the kid's playing fetch with him, it is. Yeah,
that one's terrible.
Oh my God.
But then when you've got Max looking down at the cars when he's on the little ledge, and the kids are getting in the cars and they're going off, and he's just staring at them.
Yeah.
And you can tell that it's just a shot of a very tired dog that's just staring at the floor, and they just CGI'd this image onto the floor.
My favorite is when he's going down the scaffolding.
Yes.
And, like, you can obviously tell that the dog is not jumping down to anything, and that they've just cut and pasted it onto the scaffolding.
It looks like a really bad showing at like a SeaWorld or amusement parks used to have, when it's like, hey, we've got fun animal tricks. Make sure to see our shows at 1, 3, and 5.
Yeah. It's. I mean, it's like this. I mean, you can. This is a very cheaply made movie. It's straight to video.
Yes.
But it's like it's so. Every part of it is boring. Like,
yes.
The dog action is boring.
I quantified it. I was able to distill at moment like 13 what it was that was bothering me. And I put down, this is a Disney Channel movie for kids who don't have Disney Channel and don't have ABC Family. The only channel that they get is the one that shows movies 5 to 6 years after they bomb.
That's perfect. Yeah, I mean, that's exactly what this is. And I mean, like, it might be, like, part of me feels bad making fun of some of this, because this is so obviously a geared towards children movie, except in a couple weird places, which I'm sure we'll get to. But it's just like, I don't know what they were going for.
It's not geared towards children now, though. That's the thing. And part of that boils down to the director. The director of the first movie was Boaz Yokin, who did Safe, which was a Jason Statham movie, but the biggest movie that he made was Remember the Titans. And this movie is directed by Brian Levant. And do you know what he's done, Scott?
Oh, all kinds of kids' movies with animals in them, I bet.
Oh, yeah. The biggest one, and the reason he probably got this movie, is years ago he did Beethoven. In addition to Beethoven, two of the other biggest hits that he had was Jingle All the Way and Are We There Yet?
And I see Snow Dogs, the Flintstones movies. Wow, this is quite a background.
First of all these other films that he directed at least had some type of prestige or money behind them. This film has none of that.
He's fallen quite a far away.
It makes sense that they want him for this tone, but you look at all those movies that you mentioned, and they're all of a specific time and place. Like the humor from those movies, those mid to late 90s films, early aughts, is very much the tone that he's going for in this film. And that you're talking about a sense of humor that hasn't really been prevalent for 18, 19 years. And and like, that's not really good.
Like First Kid and like Richie Rich. These are movies where it's like, oh, it sucks so much to be one of the most powerful children in the world. And it's just like that kind of 90s American sentiment just doesn't work anymore. Like
he has no friends because he's the new kid at school, but the second that he gets a dog and brings the dog to school, he gets invited to a party, which he then doesn't go to.
Well, that's the weirdest part about this movie is you have this whole scene at the school, which he's not popular at, which is insane because if you're the son of the president of the United States, you're going to be popular. Like that's just
be at least one person.
That's just going to happen. They treat this school as if it's like they say it's called Sideaway Academy, which I think is a clever nod because like the school that all the first children go to is Sidwell Friends School in DC. It's like a very exclusive private school, but it's not like none of the interior of the school looks like it's a very exclusive private school. Like no one's wearing uniforms. Like the exterior looks like an inner city type school. Like that's what they're trying to go for, but it doesn't make any sense. But it really seems like the plot of this movie is going to revolve around him getting friends at this school. But we do two scenes at the school and then we leave it forever and we don't ever go back to it.
It's you also think like the Secret Service are going to be more important because you got the guy who's trying to help him on the test.
Yeah, those two agents that are in like the first 20, 30 minutes of the movie that are like his assigned agents just disappear after they go to Camp David. Maybe they only had them for like a day or something, so they shot all their stuff and they had to leave.
I don't know. You see him like a couple times later in the movie, but like they're
just like in the background. Like they're never like active in the scene really.
Yeah, it's just yes. Anyways, this is a movie that basically says, I'm sorry. What's that? What's this broad you speak of? I only pertain to or deal with over the top as fuck.
Well, and it's weird too because the central plot of this movie is a peace deal with the Russians, which is a very timely thing to talk about.
Yeah, sure. Well, when you're talking about the most stereotypical Russians of all time,
right? Of course,
anything outside of like Boris Badnov,
they bring their own chef and then make borscht because, of course, that would happen.
Well, yeah, okay. So that's something that I'm like, you are already annoying me because you make a big deal when the president says, "Oh yeah, my wife's a great, fantastic pianist. She's going to play Tchaikovsky for you." And he goes, "Oh, I'm so used to that. Everybody wants to play that. I really want Bon Jovi instead." But then he is so fucking happy to eat his borscht. It's like, that doesn't make sense. No,
Also, it's 2017. Can we pick someone besides Bon Jovi?
Bon Jovi doesn't even want people talking about him. Probably.
No. And that feels like that dates the movie to the 90s so much, because like in the 90s you'd have someone that would reference Bon Jovi. I guarantee it. Like, it's so weird. Was this script written in the 90s and then just...
I don't know. But considering that the first movie only came out in 2015, I'm going to say no.
I mean, you literally slap a dog onto this movie and call it Max. It could have been...
It doesn't... Like, it's any dog. It's fine.
It doesn't... The dog is so immaterial to most of what happens.
It could be a Chihuahua. Probably be fine. I mean, I don't know. Should we talk about the accents?
Oh yeah. Oh, you mean the worst accent? Here's here's my theory. They had a dialect coach come on the set for 30 minutes, and each
and then they quit, right?
Well, they're working with the actors, and the actors are making a little bit of progress, and they're like, "All right, we got to shoot the scene now." And the actors are like, I really could use just a little bit longer. No, I'm sorry. We gotta go. Especially the poor little girl. Like, you feel bad for the little girl because, like, the others are adults and they should be better at this. But this poor little girl is like, do a Russian accent and try to keep it up the entire time.
What do you think? What do you mean? It's just like, are you? I can't tell if you're being vaguely Russian or if it slowly sounds like you're becoming a vampire.
It's a little of
both. Okay, so just quickly, I want to go back to this because it was one of those little moments that was in the background of the movie that just made me go, excuse me, wait, what? So when he gets back to the White House after the first day of school that we see him not being successful, he gets off the elevator and they've got a tour that's going by in that section of the White House. But it's only made up of, like, kids who are around his age. Most of them are screaming girls who are really excited to see him coming off. So how is it that he's, like, not popular, doesn't have any friends, but then has all these groupies who are screaming at the top of their lungs when he gets off there? But did you notice what was going on in the actual tour before he gets off the elevator?
I mean, they were talking about, what's his name? Harrison.
William Henry Harrison.
Yeah, Harrison, yeah.
That's her piece of trivia. She's going by, you've got the entire White House. You've got everything that's happened in the White House. Before the kid gets off the elevator in this kid's movie, the lady's talking about, she goes, oh, this is a portrait of William Henry Harrison. He famously was the shortest president in office when he died after being in office for X amount of days.
Yeah.
Then the kid exits the elevator and you're just like, why is that the part we're focusing on out of everything in the White House?
Well, and again, like, the whole first 15, 20 minutes of this movie is, like, bending over backwards to, like, make you feel sympathetic towards this kid. And it's just, like, I understand the idea of, like I think the only good line in the movie is, like, I'm the only one in this room that didn't choose to be this, like, didn't choose to undertake becoming the president in the first family. But it's like this woe is me nonsense with him is so ridiculous. It just, like, I have no sympathy for this kid at all.
No. And he decides that he's going to break out of the White House to go to the party that one of the kids at school was throwing, and bring the Russian girl in tow.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, the Russian president Vladimir Bragov, which is a very thinly veiled Putin reference. Like,
the majority of the stuff that he does and the poses that he makes are supposed to invoke Putin.
It's not subtle at all. But Bragov brings his daughter, who just happens to be the exact same as TJ, our main character. And they hang out and hit it off because they're both fun kids that don't really want to be powerful, and that whole fun exchange. They decide to go to this party together.
Yes, and so they escape. They've got a very long and thought-out way that they break out of the White House, which involves stealing uniforms from the kitchen that just happen to be their size.
So the weird thing to me is they break out, they go to another room, climb out the window, walk along an outer ledge, and then just go to the kitchen where we've seen him hang out alone before.
Yes.
So, like...
he has to go through this entire route every single time. No, it was because of Max. Remember, they had to corner Max in that room.
They just had to close a door. Like, it's not hard to lock a dog out of a room. I'm sorry.
To make decisions if you're one of these two kids is everything's difficult for them. They can wake up in the middle of the night and be like, oh man, I really need to go to the bathroom. I should get out of bed. And they'd also be like, well, I'm already going pee, so I can't do anything now.
Yeah.
That's the level of intelligence these kids are working at. Even to the point that when they're trying to go to the party, they don't make any conversation about, hey, this is the way to my friend's house. They don't have directions or anything. And then they almost get kidnapped.
Yeah, like they get off the White House lawn almost immediately and kidnapped. Like,
thankfully, Max was able to find a way to break out of the White House.
Yeah, Max opened a window with his nose and then jumped down some scaffolding, jumped over the White House fence in the most fakest looking CGI jump sequence ever, and then arrived in the nick of time to bite the kidnapper on the leg and free the first child. So Max is a hero now.
End of the movie. Yeah, there,
that's it. He's a White House
hero. Yeah. He's gonna get a medal. Oh. Wait. We've got another hour and 15 minutes.
I'm sorry, that was just the first 15 minutes of the movie. I'm sorry to tell everyone that. But
this is a movie that's 85 minutes long and feels like it's at least 2 hours.
Oh my god!
I saw Spider-Man: Homecoming last night. It felt shorter than this film.
But the crazy, so he happens to hear that his kidnapper speaks Russian, right before he gets freed. So he goes and tells his father, the President of the United States, that I was just kidnapped or attempted to be kidnapped by someone with a Russian accent. And the president's response is, I think you're overreacting. We're in the middle of these talks. We can't just accuse someone of something. So let's just drop your attempted kidnapping.
And then the girl says, hey, guess what? This kid almost got kidnapped. And they're like, oh, well, if you're both saying it, we should probably pay attention. Let's take a look into this. How did this happen? Excuse me, only other Secret Service agent who talks the entire film? Because there's only 4 of you, apparently. And what should we do? Or how did this happen? How is this possible? And he ends up saying, oh, well, they've got the renovation that they're doing on the left side of the building. So all the alarms were turned off because the people were going to be coming and going.
This is the most incompetently run White House I've ever seen.
You're not just going to shut down all the alarms on one side of the building and place no guards there. But so they decide that the best thing to do is, since the White House obviously is not that secure, then what's the most secure place that you could end up going, Scott?
Oh, it's got to be Camp David, right?
Camp
David is more secure than the White House.
Yes. Camp David, that has a lovingly painted, really, really shitty sign from like 1982, that the second that I saw it, I thought, they're really going to Camp Crystal Lake. This is going to be a secret Friday the 13th.
You know what the funny part that is, though?
I'm excited.
I saw that and thought the exact same thing. So I Googled the Camp David sign. That's what it looks like.
That's what it looks like?
That's what the Camp David sign looks like. I couldn't believe it.
Oh, you're the son or daughter of the President of the United States? Okay, it's your job to paint this sign for us. It's so shitty looking, but then that's how Camp David kind of is as well, because throughout the course of the movie, everyone's able to sneak off anywhere. Yeah,
this is supposed to be the place that's more secure than the White House, and everyone is constantly sneaking away to an unknown.
Are sneaking away. There's Russians that are hiding out in a bunker,
spying on us in a bunker. And no one seems to care about that.
Oh, exactly, because the president even makes a comment at one point when TJ's like, hey, by the way, these Russians are out in the shed. They're spying on us and other people. And the president goes, that's their job.
I think we should point out, I don't think we've said now, the president of the United States, this movie is played by Lachlan Monroe, which is the least believable president casting since the Adam Sandler movie Pixels.
Yes. He's been in plenty of stuff. If you look him up, when you see his face, you'll know exactly who he is. If you're a little bit younger in our audience that's listening, he is Betty Cooper's dad on Riverdale.
Yeah, he usually plays the stupid loudmouth guy.
Not nowadays. I mean, they play him a little bit more seriously, but that's how he always was the big, dumb, my mouth is slightly ajar because my brain can't comprehend the craziness I just witnessed.
Yeah.
That's basically who he is. I mean, not anymore, but it's just funny.
Well, now
he's
like the president of the United States.
President of the goddamn United States, or he is running the Riverdale Post-Register, or whatever the hell their newspaper is called. Yes. Hey, I just watched that recently. That's how I know that he played that part.
Riverdale is a great show, and he's fine in it. He's not fine. I never believe this man has any amount of authority whatsoever. Yeah. And it's because the movie seems to bend over backwards to make him look like an idiot.
Oh, save for the moment where he comes riding out of the barn, like with the cowboy hat and everything. Because for a few minutes preceding this, the Russian president's making a big deal, and he's like, "Oh, we ride now like men," and they're trying to set it up like it's like he's not going to be as good, and he comes out as a cowboy and everything, and you're like, "All right, he can ride a horse. He's going to be good for this," and then 10 minutes later, he's grabbing his crotch awkwardly. Like, he's not icing his junk. He's just holding on to his junk while he's walking up a hill. Because he's not really that much of a cowboy, I guess. I didn't understand.
This is some of the most pointed political commentary of our time, Adrian.
Well, I guess. Sure. No small hands. It's... Look, well, you have this going on. They're wanting to do the peace talks. It's not really happening because the Russian president keeps dragging his feet. While he's dragging his feet, nobody's spending time with any of the children whatsoever. So the children are trying to figure out who was trying to do the kidnapping. And the only other person outside of the kids that they really interact with is Chef Coop, who made at least 4 or 5 different grilled cheese and the open section at the White House.
One of the White House underling chefs goes to Camp David. I don't think that's how that works.
Yeah, they allow him along, and he's just casually sitting outside drinking. It looked like a smoothie or something when he's on the stump, and he's talking to TJ. He has the most annoying character decision because he decides to call TJ the entire film T.
Because TJ wasn't short enough.
Exactly. TJ's just too difficult. We're just going to chop off one of the fucking letters, and we're just going to call you T. Because look how creative of an individual I am.
Yeah, I mean, I think we should just go ahead and say spoilers now. This is the bad guy.
Yes.
The chef.
He's most obviously the bad guy because he's the person who has no reason being in the movie, who's in the majority of the scene.
He's in every single scene and has no reason to be there. So I immediately was like, "Oh, this is like a bad guy."
There's a scene later on where they're whitewater rafting, and he's just there to hand out water.
He's just saying
bottled water. He has a very small tray that he's carrying that all it has is 6 bottles of water.
He gives water to the Russian president's daughter and then disappears from the scene, never to be seen again.
That scene is just we'll get to that in a second. We'll just kind of run through lots of this shit because it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, because so the rest of the movie takes place at Camp David now, and it's just a series of
red herrings.
Yes, some dude messing with people.
Yes.
Again, these are not just a family on a camping trip. This is the president of the United States at their weekend retreat, and there's just people messing with them, like the whitewater rafting. They spray raft melting acid on
I don't know.
Much delayed raft melting acid.
Well, because it's weird. The technology and everything that they're using in this world seems like it's out of a shitty but really expensive James Bond. And it kind of has that weird future foot forward in a way that doesn't really make sense, like the way they're using it. Like one of the first red herrings, TJ decides that he's going to follow him out to a cabin, and because the guy is speaking in Russian, he can't tell what he's saying, and so he ends up pulling out his iPad and just holding it into the air, but like at an angle so it's directly in front of him so nobody can see it. He's not holding it up by the glass or the wall that's directly behind him. He just has it right next to him, has the microphone on, opens an app that can listen to the person speaking through glass and giant log walls, is speaking in Russian, and then correctly translate it.
Yeah. You're right. I mean, and I like that you pointed out that red herring, because that's what this movie is the kids chasing down people they think are the bad guys that are never the bad guys. And
it's red herrings up until the last 10 minutes of the movie.
Right. And they like their discovery of who actually is the bad guy is so passive. Like they don't actually accomplish anything, like at all throughout the entire film.
No. And so you've got these kids that are trying to figure out all this stuff, but they've got Max doing stupid stuff. It's not necessarily even Secret Service stuff. It's just that he happens to be there and is bonding with this kid, and the kid's asking him to do little things for, places that he can't fit into and stuff like that. Like
crawl along the floor with a GoPro on you so we can spy on the spies.
The GoPro that the kid just happens to have in his backpack.
Yeah, didn't you know when you become the president's son, they just give you an iPad and a GoPro?
No,
and you get all
because
the apps?
I wrote down that notice that usually you are given a dumb phone basically when you're put into this group, because like Obama made a really big deal when he was no longer president anymore once his term was up, and he actually was able to get his cell phone, and he mentioned that when he first became president, they gave him a phone that basically had like 3 buttons on it.
Yeah, I mean,
and
but
that was it. But this kid's able to have, he's got a GoPro, he's got the iPad, he's got everything.
We're in the Trump presidency now. Trump talks on his cell phone all the time. That's what he does. So
this movie came out this year. I don't know when it was made.
I fully believe Barron Trump has a GoPro and an iPad right now.
This movie has taken at least 20 years to make it to the screen. So
it's so future forward then. Like, look, they predicted this all.
It's just
we got Russians in the White House being way more competent. We got dogs. It's spot on. It's spot on.
And so they get in trouble with the GoPro, and that's when both the dads find out that their kids are spying on each group. And the president, Braganov, mentions, he goes, "If you won't handle your son, I'll handle my daughter." And I was like, well, yeah, that's parenting.
It's literally, I don't
know why you're mentioning this like it's a groundbreaking technique. It's just like, well, yeah, no shit. If he's not going to take care of his kid right now, then you're going to take care of yours because you want to be a good parent and you want to show up the other person. Why do they not have this in Russia until you decided this was your degree?
Well, because the other thing he says is, my daughter will not be hanging out with your son anymore. And then the next scene is the whitewater rafting when they're both together again.
They've been invited together. And he wants to go whitewater rafting because the night before he had the sleep of 1,000 men.
Does Camp David have whitewater rapids?
I don't know. But did you notice that they had a very, very expensive crane shot to show the water leading up to the beginning of the whitewater rafting?
I did. That's one of the few crane shots this movie has.
That's where I was pretty sure that crane shot into renting out and taking those rafts down that river was the entire budget.
The whole budget.
Because they go back to really shitty CGI with the little spray seal that gets put on the raft. Of course you know that it's going to explode. Now, on this raft, you've got one Secret Service person for like each president, basically. That's it. You've got the kids, you've got one Secret Service person each, and then you've got the president. And then you've got people walking above. Like Agent Thorne is with Max and is very high up on a ridge, keeping watch of everything. And I'm like, okay, that
really
doesn't
good secret servicing.
Exactly. That doesn't really work. If anything happens to any of these people, you're going to be liable then because you're just like, oh, I was just up here at the overhang. I was just taking a look. It was taken in the view.
Yeah.
It was beautiful.
Yeah. Which, of course, something does happen because the stuff got sprayed on the raft.
Okay, and this is where we stop paying attention to things like physics or logic, because while there is this thing that's causing the end of it to expand, it basically blows up, correct?
Yeah, basically.
Like, it's hard to tell from, like, the way they show it, but there's, like, a pop, and the person who's sitting on the end flies into the water.
Yeah, and then everyone flies into the water, and then...
but no. Why does everybody fall into the water?
I don't know.
They don't fall into the water because there's a hole that's causing it to deflate, because it does not deflate. What happens is they try to get up to go help the girl, and by doing so, you see them stand up and they go, whoa, and they end up causing the raft to flip. This is a raft that had an explosion on the end of it that has not deflated or thrown anyone else asunder. Just had one person fall backwards into the water.
See, I don't know why you're complaining about that, because the part I'm complaining about is how they're struggling to rescue everyone in what looks like 2 feet of water. Like, it looks like everyone's just having to lay down on their bellies because the water's not deep enough.
Yes. Yes. And so Max decides that he's basically going to commit suicide in order to save the girl.
Yeah, he does a really cool slow-mo jump off a cliff.
And no, it's... like when you're watching, you're like, no, that's not a good idea. You are definitely going to end up dead.
Max is the hero again.
But the way they shoot it, I felt so sorry for the dog because the dog's approaching the girl, but you can tell that he's not trained to stop by her because he just keeps on going and she just grabs on to whatever she can.
And the dog looks terrified. Like, it legitimately does.
The dog's like, I don't want to be here. And then when the dog gets to shore, it basically looks like the girl's holding the dog back like, no, we're not supposed to go yet. You have to look like you're going a little bit slower. It was just, it was weird. It made me feel bad about the situation.
I don't know how well trained these dogs were, because there are scenes when they're like just walking with the dog, and you can see one of the actors just has its hand on the reins of the dog, because like they're worried about it running off. And there's that other scene where he's talking to where TJ is talking to his dad, and the dog just keeps like incessantly licking his face, and you can kind of see the kids trying to get his lines out while the dog keeps licking him.
This is also the service dog that they have that's just casually sleeping in the bed with the kid every night. They're like, no, that's not what this dog is here for. That's not the reason why. I don't know what Charlie was doing before, but that's not what you're supposed to be doing. You're not taking any of this seriously.
Yeah.
I mean, no one's taking it seriously whatsoever because they end up, of course, arguing because even though everybody's safe, the Russians think that the Americans did it, vice versa, and so the president of the U.S. is like, I'm really sorry this happened, blah blah blah, and the Russian president said, I don't want to hear any more of your sincere apologies. Like, whoa, dude, you're being like just a giant asshole about it. Meanwhile, the kids who are told, once again, you're not going to spend time with each other, decide the next morning that they're going to pass notes to each other and they're going to go devise a plan. But the little girl who saw the head of the Russian group end up taking a note that she got and putting it in her mouth and swallowing it with water. This girl decides that she's going to eat the piece of paper, wash it down with a glass of milk, and go back to eating a salad.
It's so gross. Milk with salad is disgusting.
It doesn't make sense why they have it there. Like everyone else has water. I'm pretty sure that even TJ has water. But for whatever reason...
Kids have to drink their milk.
But it's like a Greek salad, too. Did you notice that?
Yeah,
it's not just simple one. Like they've got the cherry heirloom tomatoes, and then they've got like the feta crumbles on it, and then she's got the milk, and I'm like, oh no, why would you? I know these children are making horrible decisions. You don't need to make further horrible decisions for them.
But we get to the piano concert, which is my favorite.
Well, but before the piano concert, like they just have little lines throughout the movie that's just kind of speaking to how stupid everything is. Because when they meet up for that little for the notes that they were passing, TJ ends up saying, "Ha, I got you back for that time you snuck up on me." And I'm just like, of course the president's kid is going to say the most American thing possible of saying, "Hey, ha, look at that. I did better than that one thing that you did better than me that one time. I now win."
Yeah. And then they have a 5-minute conversation about whether they think the person is a double agent, a triple agent, or a quadruple agent.
Yeah.
Which is, I mean, that's just kid humor. Like, that's fine, but it's stupid.
No. It's fine if you mention it for like 2 seconds, but they have it go on for like 4 to 5 minutes, and you're like, okay, we've heard it, we've understand. Let's move along. So, they decide that they're going to end up getting together in the middle of the night while the parents are away at the piano recital that the mom's doing. And and you had a very uncomfortable moment in this next scene.
Yeah, so it's so weird. So they basically tell their parents they can't go to the recital, and they both fake sick. And the TJ just says, "I'm sick," and says his stomach hurts, and I guess makes his head hot somehow. They don't ever actually show how he does that. But then
he watched Ferris Bueller.
Yeah, there you go. But then Alex, the Russian girl, tells her dad that she's sick, and he says, "How are you sick?" And she says, "I can't tell you, but if Mom were here, I could tell her." Which is period humor, because then he gets really uncomfortable and then like backs away, like runs away.
Well, he runs away, and then when the two president dads notice that their kids aren't there, the U.S. president says, "Oh, I really hope your daughter didn't get it from my son."
Yeah, I hope they don't have the same illness. Yeah.
and the Russian president goes, "Oh, trust me, they don't. They don't."
Periods are scary.
Also brings up the question, is her mom dead?
No, they just said she didn't go on the trip.
I know, but there's like no other point. There's only that one point. Like, there's never a point that, the dad's like, "Oh, I just got off the phone with your mom, blah, blah, blah." The only time that they mention her is the fact that she's not there. And then, at the very end for that little climax. That's it.
Well, it is a Putin clone, so she could have been killed by him for speaking out against him.
Exactly. We have no idea.
Yeah, but this is just weird, because this girl, like, she looks like she's like 9. Like, this is not like I'm going through puberty person. Like, it's just a very weird decision for the movie to take.
Yeah. It's just, it's all just so annoying, and it's just pandering, and it's just trying to pad out time, especially because they're not really like privy to everything that's going on, because they accidentally get trapped in a little closet that's on stage while the mom's giving the recital, which means that Max has to take care of the guy who's trying to sabotage everything, and it's just
but here's so again, what we're doing here, I guess, is the running theory is someone is trying to stop the peace talks from happening because they don't want the United States and Russia to enter into a nuclear arms deal. So they're trying to interrupt that, whatever. So the idea here is to drop the chandelier that's over the piano, which is like set up in the most obvious way possible. Like the scene, there's a whole scene where we're prepping for the recital, and we see a man like slowly like pulling on a rope to raise the chandelier, and then we see him tie it off, and like the camera cuts to an insert shot of the tied off chandelier rope. So it's like, look, this is important.
All very
like
slow.
It's so transparent, but then like all the chandelier just falls on top of the piano. Like the mother is never under it. There's never actually any threat here.
Nope, not one at all. I wish I had a better answer, but no, there's not one at all.
Yeah,
they've got a fucking piano recital that's going on, and that they invite all these people to Camp David.
Who are all these people?
did they just give all the people who are on staff like really pretty, tuxes and tuxedos and say, here,
I think
you've got 15 minutes, please get dressed?
And I think the most important thing of all this is that the Russian president is here to discuss a peace deal. And that has not happened at all. They have not done any work. They've horseback rode. They've whitewater rafted. Now there's a piano recital. Like no negotiations have happened. So it's the least realistic thing ever.
Yeah, and then he just calls it off.
Yeah, because a chandelier fell on a piano.
Exactly. So he's just like, if you can't protect, it's another one of those lines where you're just like, I get what you're trying to say, but it doesn't make sense in the context of the film with how you said everything else. Because he goes, no, I can't make a deal with you because if you can't protect our children, how can you protect our children?
I think the problem with the line is the actor was having to do a Russian accent with it, so he couldn't hit the emphasis like he wanted to. It's a really terrible line. Like it's one of those things that sounds good on paper. I'm sure a writer wrote that down and said, "Hey, that's good." But when you actually read it, no, it's a bad line.
But again, I know it's idiotic to be looking at logic in these things, but still, you have the fucking fact that he's blaming the president for it. And it's like, no, it's going to be his Secret Service. It's going to be your security detail that haven't been doing their job the entire fucking weekend. It's not the president of the United States' job to make sure that you and your kids are taken care of,
Yeah. And it's like, so at this point, the bad guys have won. Their goal, as we understand it, is to stop this peace deal from happening. It's over. They've won. And then we turn into our third act, which, even though they've won, they decide to kidnap Alex right as TJ happens to notice that the chef has a bite mark on his leg from the kidnapping.
Because he really wants some yogurt.
Yeah. He's in there eating some yogurt, and he drops the yogurt, and Chef Coop bends down, and oh, look, he's got blood on his sock from his bite mark.
He's been Russian all along. Literally, he drops his
he drops his accent.
Which was just terrible.
Yeah. Well, there's a really weird moment, too, where he says, like, he calls Bragoff a dictator right before he reveals that he's Russian. And I'm like, what are you saying, movie? What are you trying to do? And how does kidnapping Alex, what does that do? Like,
just anger. I think they were looking for like another big.
I guess they've already won. Like, literally, if Bragoff had just taken his daughter and left at this moment, they would have accomplished their goals. But because they kidnapped Alex, they set up this complicated chain of events that means everyone reconciles at the end, and we're all happy.
Oh. No, but not everybody. I mean, while everybody gets what they want, they get the peace papers do get signed, of course, and Alex and TJ end up having their kiss, but then we get TJ still being sad and lamenting the fact that he's going to have to let Max go away, and he's even worried, like a few minutes earlier when he's talking to Coop right before Coop reveals himself, he says, and I have no idea what they'll do to Max now that he's been corrupted by me. And I'm literally like, fucking hell, kid. He has an actual family.
I know.
They have an actual family that has a dead son. At least 1 to 2 members are dealing with PTSD, including the dog who has PTSD. And you just want it for a plaything. And
there's this really weird, we didn't talk about it, but there's this really weird through line throughout the movie where the one Secret Service agent, I forget his name, but he the main one, the one that talks, the
Asian one, the Asian male. That's how they differentiate.
No, I'm talking about the black guy, like the head
Thorne.
of the,
Agent Thorne.
Oh, okay. Is that okay? Yeah, like there's this like continuing beat where every time the kids get in trouble for doing something wrong, he's like, I gotta take this dog away from these kids because this dog is having terrible influence on these kids. And it's like this weird, like, what are you talking about? Like that has nothing to do with anything.
He changed it like each time. One time he says that he needs to be dismissed from duty. There's another time where he says, where he's the one who mentions that the dog's been corrupted by the kid, that it's untrustworthy, that it's not following basic command protocol. It's like, you could have told all this, like, the first day that you were in the White House.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, it is really funny, though, because, like, every time he calls the dog over, the dog, like, looks at TJ first. And then he's like, yeah, go ahead. So it's like the dog's just fucking with the guy. But yeah, so I just...
Plus, the only time that Max actually does his job is during the climax of the film.
Right.
When he's just like, oh, I've been around that girl for the last, like, 4 days. I totally know what she smells like.
Well, and the weird part is, like, no one is competent. So the girl gets kidnapped. Both presidents and their entire Secret Service detail are just standing around going, shit, what are we going to do now? And the kid says, like, oh, we have a dog. Here, dog, smell this thing and find the girl. And everyone's like, oh, yeah, that's a good idea.
This is brilliant. You totally did it. Yeah. So they end up finding them where Alex is, and what's his face for? I'm blanking on it. But yeah, on Coop, and then Olga, because of course they had to have somebody on the Russian side be involved with it, because then they'd still be able to go with the peace treaty, because they're like, oh, just one of our people were bad. It's not like I only had one thing and you had two things. It's all even now. And
the funny thing about that is Olga was on the raft.
Yes.
So she was participating in her death.
But it's okay, because Scott, if you could be so kind as to let us know what the last daring, stupid, possibly brilliant parting words of one Chef Coop are.
Oh, I don't remember. I didn't write this down.
I would have gotten away from it. With it if it wasn't for you middling kids.
He Scooby-Doo's
and that dog.
He Scooby-Doo's him. I forgot about that.
I literally wrote no. Like, if you set that up and you make jokes about, like, Scooby-Doo and stuff throughout it, that's fine. But just all of a sudden when he gets caught, be like, hey, we're going to put this in there and you're going to have a hearty little laugh. And you're like, no, there's no way that's earned whatsoever. That doesn't fucking make sense to be like, we're going to directly quote Scooby-Doo. There's
also no way that the target audience of this movie understood that reference at all. Like, no way.
It's followed up by the second worst, or actually the worst line of the movie. Please tell me you got this one. So they cart him directly away, and you have the nice, in quotation marks, moment with the president, his wife, and his son.
Where they show him the puppies? I don't know what you're talking about.
No, that's very end. Before that, directly after they take Coop away, the first thing that the president says to his kid is, he goes, I apologize for not listening to you more. I should have done that. And then he grabs his shoulder and he said, we may be the first family, but we're a family first.
I think I must have just blocked that out, because that's terrible.
My notes literally say, fuck you, Max, too. There was no other point where they decided that really, really shitty on the nose, shitty quips like that were the level they were going to be operating at. But of course, Max does have to end up going back. They don't say that he's going back to the Wincots or anything like that. They just mentioned that it's time for him to go. I don't know what they're going to do with the dog. I was actually kind of worried that they were going to end up killing it, because it's Thorne who still takes him off, and it's just like, oh, it's time for him to go back now. And the kid's like, oh man, gee willikers, I don't get to keep the dog. I just have to live in the White House alone. Boo hoo hoo. And directly after, the president and the first lady are like, hey, we've got something for you. Come inside. And so they take him to a room, open it up. And it shows that there are 3 baby Belgian, whatever type of dog that they are. And so there's 3 of them that are right there, and you're like, oh, that's cute. He's going to pick one. And sure enough, they mentioned go choose one. And in the most American decision-making skills ever, he ends up going, I want all 3 of them.
and they don't stop him. They're just like, okay.
No, they're just like, sure, you're the president's kid. Of course we're going to let you end up having 3 of them.
And here's my problem with this. And I'm about to talk about this movie seriously, which is ridiculous, but it's also a terrible idea. It's also kind of what we do. But the point of this movie seems to be TJ is a kid who doesn't have any friends and can't, like, is having trouble in his new role of, like, being always observed, and, like, he can never be alone, and he never feels like he can meet people. And this dog comes along, and this dog helps him. It gives him confidence. He talks to people at school and goes to lunch with them. But the problem with that is he ends the movie, like, the same. He's still alone. He's still in the public eye. Now he has 3 puppies. He still doesn't have any friends. The one person he liked moved back to Russia. So, like, it doesn't do anything. Like, nothing was accomplished in this movie.
No, unless they end up taking Max back home, and he gets home, and it's only Lauren Graham from Gilmore Girls is the only one who's there because the dad has committed suicide, and the son's finally found his place and goes, "Oh, I totally get it now, Dad. I'm joining up for the army too."
Yeah, that's probably what's going to happen.
Yeah, that's exactly. If they're following with, like, the first movie, that's basically where they'd end up going.
I mean, I hope this becomes the new Air Bud, where it's just Max in different hilarious scenarios.
No, the 2 stories that they come up with for the last one, this one, are just it's literally painful to talk about that somebody decided, as weird as the first movie was, they're like, oh, this is the direction we need to take it in. This is the perfect avenue we can go down. And you're just like, no, you people should not be allowed anywhere near this.
Well, the first one was a theatrical release, right? Like, it got put out in the theater.
Yeah, it came out at the same time as a whole bunch of big movies, so that's why it didn't make a lot. But they still decided, to make a second one.
To get a sequel. Yeah.
Well, it's one of those where they basically had to change, like, 2 small parts of a, probably somebody else's spec script or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I fully believe this was a script that someone had written, and they just, for something else, and then they just worked Max into it. I mean, that is very clear.
Because the first one is weird and terrible, but it's also, you can tell where it's coming from. That doesn't mean that it's any good, but at the same time, when you're watching it, it's so fucking weird just describing anything that happens in that first Max movie, because you're like, wait. This movie's about the war dog that ends up getting adopted by the family. And you're like, yeah, that's the one that we're talking about. And you're like, but then there's gun smugglers.
Yeah, that's such a weird way to go with it, because
there's the best friend, or the son's best friend who died at the beginning, has decided to insinuate himself in this family's life just so he can get close to, one of the deals that he wants to make.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's a movie in the idea of you lose your son in war, and his dog, like, comes to live with you, and the dog is suffering from PTSD, and you're suffering from the loss of your son, and you help the dog, and the dog helps you, and there's something, like, charming to that kind of story. But yeah, the idea of taking it to this massive gun running plot and stuff is just absurd. Exactly. Like, why would you take the movie there?
Or the set piece of the fact that it's sorry, just trying to get this out is so weird to say. These kids, where they all hang out, is a made from scratch. sorry. A made from scratch BMX bike park out in the middle of the woods in a movie in 2015. Like that's why I couldn't even say it, because it's just like, you're saying these things about the first movie, and you're like, no, none of these things are in the same vicinity of each other. You talk about Max 2, and you're like, that just doesn't sound like something I want to sit through. Like, Max 1 works because of the fact that it just doesn't care what you want the film to be, that it just gets weird. Not the case with this one.
No. Yeah, the this is a bad movie. This is a bad, like, and you know, there's certain bad movies made for kids that I'd be willing to give a pass because, like, this is entertainment for children. But you know, not this. I mean, this is like, there's no redeeming quality here. There's nothing, no educational quality for a kid. There's nothing you can learn from the story from these characters. Yeah. It's nothing. It's nothing.
Well, it's like I saw while watching my nephew about 3 weeks ago. We put on Curious George 3 for him because he really likes Curious George. He's only a year old, so he doesn't understand what's going on. But still, we put on Curious George 3. I watched the entire thing. Part of that story deals with a guy who works for NASA coming to find Curious George and telling him, hey, we want you for a space program. We need you to help save the day because we're going to end up getting all this rain, which is going to cause dams not to work. And if we're not able to close them, then a shit ton of people are going to die. By the way, the NASA guy is voiced by John Goodman. I'm not joking about this.
John Goodman's doing a lot of voices.
Curious George 3 has John Goodman and Angela Bassett. The movie is an hour and 15 minutes. It is a million times better than Max 2, and it does have a weird, like educational value behind it. But that's the thing. That movie shouldn't exist on any level, and that's a direct-to-video movie. But it also understood like the time constraints and trying to keep like a small child adjusted or its focus. I don't know many children who would be able to sit through Max 2 completely.
I mean, if I can barely sit through Max 2, then yeah, a child cannot.
Yeah.
There's not even very many, like, oh, look at the dog moments. Like,
no. And there's not even, like, many stupid humor moments between, like, the two kids themselves.
No. And these poor kids, I mean, I feel bad, insulting children's acting skills, but these are not good actors.
Okay, we've talked way too long about this.
I think 5 minutes was way too long about this.
Yeah. I think just thinking about this film was, more than we should have. So let's vote. Scott, what's your vote for Max 2 White House Hero?
It's guilty.
You think, okay, good.
Yeah,
good. I was like way too long.
Well, no, I mean, like, I don't know. I was thinking about, have we said guilty in a while? And that's what I was thinking about. Because I think we've been pretty lenient on movies in the past couple weeks. But
I mean, we've been able to find like a historical reason or an academic reason to save a film. That's not the case here to me.
Yeah, no, I mean, there's nothing, like, we didn't even do the Ray of Sunshine crap with this because there isn't one. Like, there's just nothing redeeming about this film. Like, it's like a shitty 90s movie, like, that's shot as terrible as one of those movies was shot, but now it's on digital, so it looks even worse. It's so flat. Like, the entire film is so flat looking. There's not an interesting image in this entire movie. It's just bad. There's nothing I can say good about it.
Outside of the one classical music piece, I can't think of any known songs that were dropped into the film.
No, it's those same, like, little, like, it's like, it felt like stock score music, where it's just like piano keys, like, diddling around for a while.
But that's what's weird in 2017, that they're not even ranking for, we're going to try to get, some really cheap music from up and coming bands that no one's never going to listen to, just to fill it with something else. Especially with a kids movie, you usually have, like, kid bands and stuff that you can get for that. They didn't even have that for it.
Yeah. No.
Yep. Okay, I vote guilty as well. Let's get this sucker out of there. I'm gonna, even though we're not voting upon it, I'm gonna say I'm going to save the first Max movie, because that one just gets completely fucking weird, that I want people to see it and be like, wait, what is this film about? Why is this about BMX kids trying to stop a gun running cartel? There's also corrupt cops in that movie. as well that are trying to.
Of course, you gotta.
That are the reason that the kid gets the bad guy gets a job working for Thomas Hayden Church is because he owns a storage facility that's fallen in a hard time, so he can store like all his guns and stuff
Jesus.
in this guy's place that he's fencing to the sheriff's department. That's how part one is compared to this second movie that's making fun of Russians.
Yeah, God, I wish we watched that one. I really do.
I'm mad. I watched both of these. It caused me pain. It almost broke me. Like I was almost to the point where I was gonna tell Scott, this might be it. I might be throwing the towel. So to channel that anger and that rage, I'm going to do us a favor when it comes to the next movie, and I'm going to do something that I think will make us happy. We've been waiting for a while, and I think, Scott, we should just bite the bullet and we should just do Heart Beeps.
I can't tell if you're joking or not.
No, I'm saying that we need to after what we've been through. Like I think we can wrap our minds around something like Heart Beeps in a way that we might be able to appreciate a little bit more after what we've been through.
You know what, Adrian? I'll believe it when I see it. I'm gonna start watching Heart Beeps, and you're gonna come to me and say, "I got this other cool movie that we need to do."
No, that's not what's going to happen.
Well, we're
going to watch this movie
see next
and
Friday.
We're going to do Heart Beeps. That's what we're going to do. Okay, Scott, where can we find you on the internet, or is there anything that you would like to plug at this time?
I can be found on Twitter at ScottDaily85. I don't think I have anything specific to plug right now. One of the other podcasts I do is called We've Got Worm. It's about a web serial about... it's hard to explain if you haven't read it, but it's a very popular web serial called Worm that was published in chapter by chapter increments for like 2 years. Me and my friend Matt are working our way through it. So if you have read that book or haven't read it, we're doing like a companion piece to it. So you can check that out. It's on its own feed. You can find it anywhere podcasts are available.
All right. So it's about people who collect worms.
No, it's about people with superpowers.
It's called We've Got Worm. So that implies that it's people who own worms.
My podcast is called We've Got Worm because Worm is the name of the book, and it's a reference to Dumb and Dumber, sir.
Did you have the book?
Do I have the book? It's online. Yeah, it's free online.
I know, but you just said you had the book. You've called it We Have Worm. Worm is the name of the book.
I have a very good grasp on Worm.
That might be a much better or more honest title.
I'm sorry.
So maybe think about rebranding in the future. You can find me on Twitter at Adrian Torres. At the same time, got writings that I'm doing here and there. I just saw Spider-Man last night. A couple nights before I saw The Big Sick. So I'll have those reviews dropping in the next several days. We're trying to find out where we are when it comes to embargoes because Kansas City's a little bit weirder than the outlier states. If you're in like New York, LA, Chicago, they're like, yeah, we'll let you put it out whenever for certain movies because they want to get the word out. Otherwise, everyone else are like, hey, you're still considered small potatoes because you're in the Midwest, so you got to wait. Last week for Transformers, I was on the Cinemaland podcast. You can look them up. It was a fun time. We tried to figure out what happened in the movie. We didn't entirely succeed. Tomorrow, since we're recording this on Thursday, tomorrow night, I'm going to be joining up with the boys of Nerds of Nostalgia and doing an episode with them where they're going to be talking about the Cornetto trilogy as well as Baby Driver, which of course just came out this past Wednesday, and everybody needs to go see Baby Driver.
I second that. It is an amazing movie. It is the most fun I've had at the theater so far this year, and I think it will be the most fun I'll have at the theater for the rest of the year. It's such a fun movie.
We're in the heart of it right now. You've got Baby Driver just came out. You've got Spider-Man right around the corner. You've got The Big Sick is just about to come out. You just had Okja drop. on Netflix. So we're very much in the big heart of the summer. You've got smaller ones, that are petering out. I haven't seen them, but this weekend also has Despicable Me 3 and The House.
Yeah, so, and The Beguiled too is out. At least it's out here. I'm seeing that tomorrow.
It's scattered. That's the only reason why I wasn't mentioning it, because that's another one that, hey, certain cities are going to get it before everybody else. So
it's been a pretty great film year, and it's shaping out to be a pretty good summer too. I mean, you have your stinkers like you do every year, but there's a lot of filmmakers that don't release films very often that happen to all be having them come out this summer. So it's exciting.
I won't complain about that in the least. Okay, until next time, you guys, when we do Heartbeats. We'll see.
I just don't believe you. I just don't. You're a liar. You're a liar, Adrian. You're in the wrong place, baby. Soldier.